Welcome to the Marriage Unmasked podcast. Today we're talking about how to navigate overwhelm when both spouses are working. And if you've experienced this, you know this can be a challenge because you're juggling careers, you're juggling the home and all the responsibilities there. It might be kids, and a lot of times one spouse feels completely overwhelmed and the other one might not even be aware of that, or maybe they're each feeling overwhelmed and not sure what to do about that as well. So we're going to talk about why this happens and what you can do about it. There's a mental load to this. It's not just the to-do list, right? It's what's behind that. It's the organizing, the planning, the remembering, the leading. And I know I felt that myself. And it's exhausting. It's draining. It's really hard to feel like you're the one carrying that. It's very overwhelming.
Yeah, it's really hard for you to relax.
Mm-hmm.
Relax into like really your femininity too.
Yeah, as a woman.
As a
Yeah.
woman, to
Mm-hmm.
relax into that when you have to micromanage everything.
Mm-hmm.
And the physical load is one aspect of it. For husbands, we often can think that when we help out with some of the physical stuff that we are taking some of that load off. And we are taking some load off. It's not like we're not doing anything.
Right.
We help out washing the dishes or we do something like that. And even the idea that we're just helping out in the house is really, and us guys, we can fall into that where we're out doing our work, we're providing for the family, we're doing things, and then we come back and we think that that whole domain is her domain. And well, I'm going to come in and I'm going to step in and help now. I'm going to help. I'm going to do the dishes. I'm going to take some of these physical things off. I'm going to clean this area up over here. I'm going to take the kids for a little while here. And we think that we're just helping her with part of her responsibilities. And that's really not a great way to look at it. Mm-hmm. Because really, if you think about it, the house is our responsibility. Yeah. And as the head of the house, God wants you to be the shepherd of your family and the overseer of your family. And you should be very much involved in the managing and the leading of the whole thing and the mental load of everything going on. I work with a guy who he kept on bringing this up and he kept saying, I'm helping her all the time. I'm doing all these things. I come home and I am doing this and doing that and doing that. And the problem is he's not seeing the fact that it's not just the physical stuff. It is this mental load. It's this heavy responsibility of overseeing everything. Mm-hmm. That is a big part of the load that we as guys don't always see.
Well, and we're talking about when both spouses are working.
Yeah.
So I know for us, there was a time when I was working outside of the home. Now I work in the home, working with our kids, homeschooling, but also working on our business. But and this is, whether you work outside the home or in the home, it is still, these are additional responsibilities, right? You have work to do and you have all of these other activities. And there was a time when we were both working outside of the home and I was working inside the home.
Yeah, Cara took on, I don't know how many things. I mean, she had several, she had an online business. She had a blog that she was running. She worked as a fitness instructor at a local gym. So she would actually physically go and do that. And I was apprenticing in as a plumber. So I was gone, long hours during the day. And then she's taking care of 3 and then 4 kids in that situation, homeschooling and doing all these responsibilities. And I remember that time period, and it is pretty sad. I mean, just like what we were talking about, I would come home and I would help with a few things, but I was almost like, okay, honey, what fires do I need to put out now when I come home? And so I'm helping again. I could have done a better job of seeing my role and seeing my responsibility to be really involved in the managing of my whole family, the whole atmosphere.
Yeah, I remember very, very chaotic days for a season. It was so chaotic because I would go to the gym. I was a personal trainer and I preferred to have the kids stay at home with Adam, that he would come home from work right before I would go. But a lot of times he was late. And so I would also have to take the kids. And so it was so chaotic trying to manage that all, trying to manage my oldest was in a private school, and so managing him getting off the bus and getting ready to go with me and managing that all, managing supper then for when I'm gone and the homework and all, that was just the afternoon evening part of it, but then also managing the rest as well. I definitely felt that burden
Yeah, and I would come home and maybe wash some dishes, or I would help with like cleaning a bathroom or doing something like that, but not recognizing that what Cara really needed was for me to take over some of this oversight and managing and planning and decision making.
Actually, funny story, not funny, but this is why I did appreciate that, because I remember one day I was quickly getting ready to go and he said he was going to be late again, so I was going to have to bring the kids. And my one daughter, it was nap time and she had gotten poop out of her underwear, wiped it all over her bedroom walls, her bed, the floor, under the rugs, everywhere. And that's what I walked into. And so,
yeah, the smell hit her in the face, and she's like, "Oh my goodness."
so I did appreciate that I could tell him, hey, when you get home, this is what you have to clean up.
Yeah.
So it is appreciated, but it still is this burden of feeling like you have to manage everything, right? You have to plan, make sure everything is getting taken care of. And it's just, it was so chaotic. It was so overwhelming.
And I think I have this sadness about that whole time period. And maybe some guys can relate to this, but I had this idea. She wanted to take on all this stuff. And this goes back to having some resentment and having this nice guy people pleasing thing and all that stuff. Really, it goes back to that because I was thinking, well, she's choosing to, she just wants to do all this stuff. I guess it's on her. What a really sad, negative way of looking at things. Instead of, if I do notice that she's overburdened, I should be stepping in and voicing that and saying, hey, we should together look at this schedule and see how we can change it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of you weren't living in your masculinity,
right,
and you were just living in a victim mindset. So that makes sense that that's what was going through your head. But yeah, I like what you said. We really do need to be intentional to check on each other, to check on the loads that we're each carrying, and not to measure or to judge. Oh, well, you only did that. Well, I've done more. It's not a competition, but it's to check in and support each other.
And a great passage about this is Philippians 2:4. Each of you look not only to his own interests, but also to the interests of others as well. And that is a key part of this is when we get so caught up in our own things, we get so caught up like I did. I was so caught up in my own thing, my apprentice plumbing and my schedule and trying to, run around, and I was stressed about my own stuff and I wasn't noticing, I wasn't caring as much as I needed to about what she was also experiencing in that situation and trying to take that load off of her, trying to manage that. And both of you in the relationship, you both need times of rest. You both need to be able to rejuvenate, and that's essential for you to be able to function in the relationship and to do all these things that needs to be done. And sometimes it's really hard for one person to feel like they can rest. When there's always this mental list. I've got that to do, and I've got that to do, and I've got that to do. Like this list is never ending. So it's like it's very hard then to let go of that list and just rest. And so it takes a man to really step in and lead that and to be like, okay, we both need to have this time of rest and to really set some boundaries around that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if it's the wife who's feeling overwhelmed and overburdened, we will just go and go and go, and we will take care of what needs to be taken care of. We will just continue to pour ourselves out until we're completely depleted. And it is really a husband's part of his role to protect his wife,
to protect her even from herself, because like Cara said, like women will give and give and give and give in that role of nurturing and caring for others, and they can give to the extreme and really burn out. And Cara even experienced adrenal fatigue, so she was even having health issues because of all of the stuff that she was trying to manage and take care of. And what a beautiful thing for a husband to step in and protect his wife from that mental load.
So let's talk about why does this happen? Where one person is feeling so overwhelmed. Both are working, both have responsibilities, but one person is carrying more of this load and they're feeling overwhelmed. I mean, a lot of times I think this comes from this abuse of gender roles, kind of like you were talking about before, where there's this spoken thing like, well, it's her domain or the home is her thing. This is her responsibility. That is, I think, very unhelpful.
Yeah, I think that's a really sad dynamic. You think about like ages ago, like Bible times even, everybody was working together in the same house and the husband was there managing everything. It was just part of being there. And I think what we've lost in some ways going off into a workforce is we've lost that and we've separated the two so much. And really we need to get back to like where the man, if you're working outside of the home, your work outside of the home is actually just part of the work of the home. Your real work is the home. Your real career is managing your family. Your real focus should be being that provider, but also that protector and that one who is leading the direction, setting the tone, setting the atmosphere at home, and managing things and solving problems at home and leading all of that. And your job outside of the home is just part of that picture. If we could get back to that kind of a mindset, it would be really helpful.
Sometimes also there's unspoken assumptions. Like he was assuming I wanted this, like I liked it somehow.
I was assuming she seems to want to do all these things. She's piling all this stuff on herself. And I'm like, okay, well, that's what she wants. Well, that's just so unhelpful.
Perfectionism could play a role here too. I have struggled with perfectionism in varying degrees, and maybe that's part of what you saw is just this. Maybe the need to control and the perfectionism, and so that could be part of it as well. And sometimes there's a lack of communication where maybe there are assumptions and they're not communicated, or maybe you are feeling overwhelmed and you're kind of keeping that locked inside. Maybe it's a bunch of resentment over that too, and you're not communicating. And I think sometimes wives, they don't want to feel like they're nagging, like, could you help out? Like, and it really is like another thing on their mental list if they have to communicate to their husband. So it could be that too, that there's so much overwhelmed that you're like, I don't even want to communicate because it's just another thing that I have to handle and I have to lead. And the husband maybe is assuming that everything's fine, or vice versa, right? If the roles are reversed there.
Or sometimes the communication isn't there because the husband's constantly asking questions. And that's just adding to the mental load too. Whereas it's really on us as men too, to really tune in and to know what is needed. And, it's not like you can't ask any questions. Obviously, you need to sometimes. But to be invested enough and aware of what's going on in the family enough that you don't need to ask questions all the time, that you can tune into the atmosphere and make decisions based on what you know already about your family.
Yeah, and when you say ask questions, you're talking about like the example of like, do you need me to help with this?
Yes, yeah,
should I take out the trash? What else should I do? What
almost
do you need
like
any help?
an
right?
employee in your house.
Right,
It's
right.
almost what it feels like at that point.
Right.
So I'd also like to talk about some signs of when this is happening, when this mental load is really kicking in and causing this dynamic. One of them, if you're feeling unappreciated in the relationship, nobody sees me, nobody cares what I'm doing, that's a sign of this mental load. If you're getting really irritable, and you're like, why am I getting so irritable? That could be a sign that this is happening. Or you are really tired and there's fatigue setting in. It's important to really assess your level of overwhelm. Like, take stock of it. What is actually happening inside of me, and why is it happening? And again, it's good for a husband to take the lead on that as well. And here, let's pause. Let's take a look. Let's take stock of this, and let's reset this dynamic a bit.
And to, like, let's talk about how to make some practical steps forward. What are some solutions to working through this? And one is going back to that, having the healthy communication about it, having the conversations, open, intentional conversations. Try to come in peace, because if there is resentment there, that might come out in these conversations, or there's some anger, some frustration that could come out. So try to, notice those emotions, process them before you come to the conversation. And then you're having these conversations where you're going through what are the tasks and the responsibilities. And together you're developing this maybe master list or something like that, where, you write everything down, and then you can start to discuss who's responsible for what, right? And it's important too to identify hidden tasks, because there are these tasks that they're not necessarily seen, right? The leading, the enforcing, parenting and that kind of thing, organizing. That can cause a lot of overwhelm to feel like you are in charge of all of those hidden ones, right? Sometimes the men, they might do some of the obvious things. Yeah, I'm gonna help with the dishes, but like there's so much more than just helping with the dishes or loading the dishwasher or taking out the trash, right? And so I think it is really this is an area where men can really step up.
Yeah, and this is where we can step up in actually like taking on this whole problem. A good challenge for us as men is to really have this kind of conversation, to lead this kind of conversation, to do this sitting down with your wife and taking stock of the whole situation right now and doing this sort of reset where you're listing off all of the things that need to be done. You're hearing from her. Like, I think that's really important to like actually listen to your wife and what is she going through? What is she experiencing? What is she struggling with this mental load, and to actually get it all out on the table like Cara was saying. But we as men can step up and actually lead this conversation. We can help to reset this dynamic a lot if we get really involved and step into this and start to get more organized around it. And men, if you need support and help in that, how to do that or how to step up and lead in this situation, that's exactly why I formed my Refined Men's membership, is because this is what we talk about in there. We talk about these kind of practical things where we can step up and step into these kind of situations and really start to retake leadership in our family.
And all the women just start swooning. Ah, right. I mean, honestly, back then when I was struggling so much, the thought of Adam taking a leadership role in like, hey, I realize there's a lot of responsibility on your shoulder. I want to take that off. I mean, I couldn't even have fathomed that at all. Like
that is like, take note of that. That is massively attractive. Like, you may not really feel like you're qualified for that, or you might think that I don't really feel comfortable with that. But if you can really embrace that and step into that, it is an extremely attractive thing. And it can start to reset some painful dynamic in your relationship that's been going on for a long time.
Another really helpful thing is to make sure you're setting boundaries. You want to know your limits. You want to know when you're starting to feel overwhelmed, and then you can set a boundary, right? Like, what are some of your strengths? Like, if I'm trying to do the most disgusting things in our house, I'm going to get burned out a lot faster than if I'm cooking or something. Like, I enjoy those more than, taking out the trash, dealing with the compost, doing some of that more dirty, disgusting stuff.
As a man, I've always wanted to take on whatever is disgusting, whatever is dangerous, and whatever is particularly difficult. So, like, if there is a spider that needs killing, that's on me. If there is trash that needs to be taken out, if, like we were saying, our daughter poops all over the room, well, that's on me to do. And I used to also just clean the bathrooms because I had a job where that's basically what I always did. And so I just, like, that's fine. I can clean bathrooms.
How come you don't still clean the bathrooms?
We've changed some of that dynamic.
We've moved to a homestead where there's more dirty things than just the bathroom. So I do the bathrooms. He does the
I do some
more
even more disgusting
things.
things in the homestead stuff. So yes, I guess that's true.
Anyways, you're both different, right? And you both have those strengths. And so it is very helpful to not burn yourself out on doing things you absolutely despise when maybe your spouse, it's not that big of a deal to them to do it. And really prioritize rest and self-care. And, I can't say this enough, and we could do a whole podcast on this topic. You weren't made a human doing. Right? You are a human being, and God wants you to just be with Him. And so, just rest, take care of yourself, enjoy, have silent times where you are literally doing nothing and it's quiet, and see what comes up. Like, you're noticing things about your body, you're noticing things about what's going on in your heart. You're able to be with God and, just enjoy that time with Him. That is all so important as well. And I think sometimes we get so into our busy, busy, busy lives and all these responsibilities, and we lose this beautiful gift that God has given us just to be a human being. And that is such a gift.
Yeah, that's so important. And another thing to do is just like revisit the expectations that you have around the mental load and the household responsibilities. Do this regularly. Like, have a check-in, maybe once a month, maybe once a quarter, where you take stock of the situation, because this is always changing. Your life is changing. Your kids are growing. there's different work demands and you have different seasons of life, and you have to make some shifts and adjustments on how you're handling the mental load of the household as well.
Mm-hmm. And I think another really helpful part of this is to really see each other. It can be very easy, and I think you mentioned it earlier, just a little bit of how we kind of gets caught up in our own life, right? Our own responsibilities. But when we see each other, there have been low times in our marriage where I've had to just I like to practice gratitude a lot, but I've had to just practice it even just around Adam. Like, okay, I'm just going to come up with 5 things I'm grateful for just about my husband specifically. And that can be helpful because sometimes we're only seeing the things that maybe irritate or affect us in a negative way because we're so focused on our world and we need everything to be, going okay, and we're juggling all these things. And so to see each other, support each other, pray for each other, appreciate each other, that can be so powerful.
Yeah, and it's also really important just to stay connected as husband and wife. Like, your relationship is really it is the heartbeat of the whole household. And so if you let your relationship go, if you're so busy and so pulled away in all these other different directions, or so overwhelmed, you can actually start to lose your relationship in all of this. And that can be really hard and really painful and really hard to get back together again. And so it's really important to prioritize spending some quality time with each other, going on dates, making that a weekly habit or a monthly habit where you're intentionally spending time together, intentionally seeing each other as your wife, as your husband again, and not just a partner in life. So that's very important as well.
Mm-hmm. So we just give you a kind of like a bunch of things, right? And I don't always like to do that, but there are some really good things to talk about in this topic. I'll just kind of run through them again for you. Having that open, intentional conversation, identifying hidden tasks. That's the second one. The third one is setting boundaries. The fourth one is prioritize rest and self-care. The fifth one is to revisit expectations and check in regularly. And then the sixth one is to support each other in your different roles. And then the last one was to stay connected as husband and wife. So I encourage you just to pick one. There are many. Pick one and start there. Right? Maybe it's starting with that intentional conversation, because that seems like a great place to start, where you talk about maybe the hidden tasks, or you set up how you're going to rest more and how you're going to practice being, and you have that conversation together. If you're having trouble with this, because again, I know this can turn into a heated conversation, I do have my free masterclass, how to communicate your needs without your husband shutting down or getting defensive. That could be a great masterclass to go to. The link will be in the show notes for that, because I really teach you how to communicate in a way that is helpful and healthy for having conversations like these that are maybe a little bit more difficult, or maybe there is some emotion, some history behind it, right? And you still can have those conversations, and they can be beautiful and so healthy for you and help your relationship grow. But it can be the opposite if you don't know how to have that healthy communication around it. So you're not alone. We're here to support you. Please reach out if you guys have any questions. Really take it one day at a time. Yeah. I think life is meant to be taken one day at a time, instead of, thinking too far ahead, or even going back and revisiting things in the past that have been really painful. Know that God is fighting for your marriage, right? He wants you guys to be thriving. He wants you to be thriving in all areas of your life. And he cares about everything, even things like your responsibilities around the home. He cares about those things. You can bring to him anything that you're feeling, and know that you're safe with him. And we'd love to hear if you have any thoughts on this episode. If you can relate, please share it, rate, and review the podcast. We'd love hearing from you, and we will see you next week.